Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here, about the theory of the exploitation of labor. In response to Springtime 916, the poor people who work in the factories, sure, they might get a job, they might be able to afford some nice things while they're alive, but as long as the poor don't own the means of production, they don't really have a chance, right? Well, I put to you the question of, the massive mansions that were built by Rockefeller and company, J.P. Morgan and anybody else you mentioned in the 1800s, the robber barons, built huge mansions which employed a dozen or 24 gardeners and many maids and house servants and so on, and how many carpenters and how many skilled artisans to make the artwork and all of the trims and stuff all over the house. Well, if you would take all of his money away and say he doesn't need all that, look at all those people that would be out of work. Let's say that instead of building a massive house, J.P. Morgan, let's say, builds a medium-sized house, just enough that he, can get along with. He doesn't need much more than what he has, let's say. Just builds that and puts the rest of his money in the bank and keeps it in the bank and doesn't spend it on frivolous things, money and investments in business and stuff, but leaves a lot of his money in the bank instead of spending it on his personal luxury and wealth. He's depriving all those gardeners and artisans of their livelihood, but now that that money is in the bank has a bunch of money that it can lend out. So poor people who may not have a good station in life but maybe have good credit, they will be able to borrow some of that money for whatever means they want to improve their life. They can borrow it for an investment purpose to make themselves richer, or they can borrow it just to get like a car or a new stereo or something, and just pay it back and just enjoy it. They can do either one. It's up to them. So a rich man can either spend his money on things he likes, which employs people, or he can put it in the bank, which leaves it in the bank so that people can borrow it. Either way, a rich man is the beneficiary of society. We're not even talking about the means of production yet. Now let's talk about the means of production. Is it true that the poor need to own the means of production, elsewise they're disowned or whatever? Well, there was a very, very rich man who owned several different carriage-making factories and had virtually his entire fortune in the the manufacture and sale of bridlery and stuff for horses and things. And when automobiles came into place, into production and became commonly used, his fortune started to decline. And he didn't diversify or anything. He thought automobiles are stinky, smelly, and stupid. I'm making this guy up, by the way. And so he didn't diversify. He stayed with horse carriages and his companies because he thought they'll be back in time. Cars are going to go out of style, and then I'll be sitting fine and pretty. Cars didn't go out of style. The guy lost virtually everything he had. Like I said, I made this guy up. And he had all of that at risk. Okay? If you own the means of production, you are at risk. If it's a storm that destroys your building, hopefully you have insurance, or if it's just society changes its mind. They want different types of shoes now, or they want different types of cars now, or they want different light bulbs now, and your company is out of luck. Owning the means of production isn't all cream and gravy the way the Marxists would make you think it is. It's actually very difficult to get hold of the means of production, and you have to maintain good order with those means of production, or else someone will take them from you in a free economy. So the poor man, look what does the poor man have to do to make a living at Henry Ford's factory? Granted, it took Henry Ford 30 years of hard work before he was able to build his massive factory that he had dreamt of. Years and years of single-minded effort, single-minded obsession with productivity and efficiency. He didn't spend his time lollygagging at the five and dime. He didn't spend his time going around with women who weren't his wife after work at night. He spent his time working hard to make sure that Ford was the best car company that he could make it. And when he finally gets his factory built, after all these years of effort, that's what it takes him to get his factory. What does it take you to get a job in his factory? All you have to do is promise to turn wrenches. You're going to show up every day and you're going to turn this wrench on these bolts. And you didn't have to invest anything. You don't have to buy stock in the company. You don't have to do anything at all besides show up and work. So how much better off is Henry Ford? Sure, he has the means of production, but his life has been stapled down by it. You can go in and take advantage of his means of production for free. He'll pay you to go in there and use his tools to make cars for other people so that you can benefit other people, which means you get paid. And then you can do something with your pay. Now, what sense does it make to say that the poor person's held down unless they own a factory of their own? That poor person doesn't need a factory. They probably don't want a factory. If they had one, they'd probably either let it run down and break or they'd sell it. So let's let the poor people do what they want with their lives, namely, consume what they produce virtually immediately. And let's let the wealthy and the far-sighted do what they want with theirs, namely, to save up, to put off consumption, to invest. Let's let them both do as they please, because I'm in favor of freedom.